dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of Your Say. Your Say is a show dedicated to give way to your say on current events. Our show documents events, sheds light on the perspectives of international figures on them, and gives the regular person, wherever they are, a platform to speak their opinion.
Interim President Ali Mansour adopted last week a temporary constitution outlining the powers of the presidency and providing a timetable for the transition of power from an interim government to a new president and parliament. According to the declaration, the president is to form a panel of judicial experts to draft amendments to the suspended 2012 constitution within 15 days. The panel will be given 30 days to finalize the amendments, then refer it to a larger 50-member committee representing all segments of the society, including the political parties, workers, farmers, syndicates, Al-Azhar, the Egyptian church, the army, the police, and other public figures. The committee has 60 days to finalize the draft and then submit it to the president, who should put the amendments for a public referendum within 30 days. The president has 15 days to call parliamentary elections from the day the constitution is approved. According to the declaration, parliamentary elections will be held within 2 months from the president's call for election, while the presidential parliamentary elections will be held within 2 months from the president's call for election, while the president's election will be called upon with 1 week from the parliament's first session. The interim president is entitled with the legislative power until a parliament is elected, and also has the right to impose a state of emergency following the approval of the cabinet. The Rebel campaign, or Tamarrud, as well as the 6th of April youth movement, both stated that interim President Mansour had listened to their reservations regarding the new constitutional declaration and promised to issue a constitutional addendum accordingly. Rebel Coordinating Committee member Maha Abu Bakr said that among articles objected to by the campaign was Article 1, which she said was copied from the now suspended constitution drafted by Islamist parties regarding the role of the Islamic law. Rebel members also objected to holding parliamentary elections before presidential polls, as is called by the Constitution Declaration.
Today on Your Say, we'll be tackling the latest developments that took place here in Egypt. Egypt's interim leader on Tuesday swore in Egypt's first cabinet since the ousting of Mohamed Morsi, giving members of the country's liberal movement key positions and naming 3 Christians and 3 women, their highest numbers in an Egyptian government. The new government is led by Prime Minister Hazim al-Biblawi. An economist, Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi retains his post as Defense Minister and took the position of the first Deputy Prime Minister, an additional title given to defense ministers in the past. Women have somewhat higher profile, with 3 ministers, including the powerful Information and Health Ministries. Most past governments for decades have had at most 2 women in them most. The cabinet also includes 3 Christians, including 1 of 3 women, Environment Minister Layla Rashid Iskandar. The Morsi-appointed Interior Minister Mohammed Ibrahim remained in his post as charge of the police. Nabil Fahmy, who was Egypt's ambassador to the United States from 1999 to 2008, became the foreign minister. In addition, the new deputy prime minister in charge of international cooperation, Ziad Bahauddin, is a member of the Social Democratic Party, which is a part of the National Salvation Front. General Adil Labib, Minister of Local Development, Sharif Ismail Mohammed as Minister of Oil, Munir Fakhri Abdel Noor as Minister of Trade and Industry, Hisham Zazoua remained the Minister of Tourism, Engineer Ahmad Mustafa as Minister of Electricity and Energy, Ramzi George as Minister of Scientific Research, and Durriya Sharafuddin as Minister of Information, Maha Sayyid Zain Al-Abidin as Minister of Health, and Muhammad Mahmoud Muhammad as Minister of Irrigation and Water Resources. Muhammad Ibrahim Ali Al-Sayyid was appointed Minister of Antiquities, and Tahir Abu Zaid Minister of Sports. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton started a visit to Egypt, during which she held talks with interim President Adli Mansour. Diplomatic sources said that the European official also met with Prime Minister Dr. Hazim al-Biblawi, among other officials, to discuss the recent developments taking place in Egypt. Presidential media advisor Ahmed al-Mislimani said that the presidency rejects the recent statements by Turkey on Egypt. Addressing a press conference, he noted that Ankara has to respect the sovereignty of Egypt and not interfere in its internal affairs. He said Egypt did not interfere or comment on the recent Taksim incidents and protests in a number of Turkish cities. Al-Mislimani commented on efforts for national reconciliation, saying that Al-Azhar institution is part of the presidential vision for achieving this reconciliation. The media advisor said that the presidency calls on all political forces to participate in the political life. He stressed that reconciliation will not substitute the demands of the revolution. As for the new cabinet lineup, he said no faction was excluded in the process of selecting the cabinet. He noted that the Ministry of Information will remain in the new cabinet but will not complete the transitional period. Cautious calm prevailed in Ramses Square in downtown Cairo after a night of sporadic clashes last Monday between Muslim Brotherhood supporters on one hand and security forces and residents of the area on the other hand. Police fired tear gas when protesters calling for the reinstatement of the ousted President Mohamed Morsi quarreled with the drivers and passers-by who were annoyed that they had blocked major roads. The Interior Ministry used tear gas to disperse the protest because the protesters had blocked the traffic in the area and threw rocks at passing cars. Street battles erupted in a neighborhood near Ramses Square between the residents and the Brotherhood supporters. Clashes also erupted near Giza Square. 7 people were killed and 261 were wounded in the clashes in Cairo. Meanwhile, Al-Azbakiyya prosecution ordered the detention of 70 of the pro-Morsi and Muslim Brotherhood members for 24 hours pending investigation after being charged with inciting violence at Ramses Square last Monday, trying to break into Azbakiyya police station, targeting some of its police officers and cutting off 6th of October bridge. In addition, the prosecution has summoned a forensic official to investigate the incidents, setting Ramses police point totally ablaze. Premises of the media production city in the 6th of October city was under heavy security. This occurred after the Muslim Brotherhood supporters in Rab al-Adawiyya intersection called last week for protests against the media production city. Security sources said forces were sent to protect the premises and the employees. Interim Prime Minister Hazim al-Biblawi met last week with U.S. Undersecretary of State William Burns. The meeting was attended by U.S. Ambassador to Egypt Ann Patterson and Burns' accompanying delegation. Al-Biblawi and Burns discussed the current political situation in Egypt. Burns also met with Defense Minister General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The Army said in statement posted on the Army spokesman Facebook page that Burns and Sisi discussed the recent political developments in Egypt and ways to reinforce cooperation between the two countries. The U.S. State Department said that Burns is scheduled to hold talks with a number of he held talks with a number of officials and representatives of different political forces. Burns is the first U.S. senior official to visit Egypt since June 30th revolution that ousted Mohamed Morsi. Minister of Planning Ashraf al-Arabi said that aid from Arab states will carry Egypt through its transition period and it does not need to restart negotiations with the IMF now. Al-Arabi, a U.S. official, said that the U.S. officials said the time is not appropriate to begin new negotiations with the IMF, adding that the Arab aid will enable Egypt to get through the transitional stage in Egypt in a good way. Let's know more about the Egyptian economy in the following report.
Economic analysts are optimistic that the ousting of President Morsi may presage a brighter future for the country's economy. Traders hope that Egypt's prospects will improve in the absence of Morsi, even though the country's battered economy remains in crisis. Some analysts said a long-stalled loan from the International Monetary Fund may now be possible, although others remain skeptical. They say technocrats will know how to deal with the institutions. They will have the country financially because they have a clear agenda. According to them, there will be a definitive change to the business environment for the international and domestic investors. The Arab Spring Revolution that removed Hosni Mubarak from power did not translate into the economic change many had hoped for. Instead, over the past 2 years, political instability in Egypt has ensured that inflation and unemployment rose, while foreign investment and tourist revenues have folded. Government debt has grown from $30 billion before Mubarak was ousted to around $40 billion today. Inflation, which 2.5 years ago was 3%, now stands at between 13% and 18%. Unemployment has climbed to record 13.2% under Morsi. The political instability has made it increasingly difficult for the government to raise taxes from Egypt's 80 million strong population. So as debt ballooned, the previous government continually dipped into the country's cash reserves, which $16 billion today are less than half what they were before Morsi took office. Because he battled to raise money from two of his own people, tourists stopped coming and IMF loan became stalled. Qatar and Saudi Arabia loaned at least $3 billion each. Turkey put in another $1 billion and Libya stumped up $2 billion. And while the IMF loan of $4.8 billion failed to materialize, the insecurity had escalated severely over the past 3 years. Analysts say that under Morsi the economy went from bad to much worse and is now close to collapse. Electricity and water supplies were sporadic, and in some places even basic foods such as bread are hard to come by. However, such a picture should not detract from the fact that Egypt's economy was in dire straits before the revolution that ousted Mubarak. Unemployment was running at 10% and a quarter of young people were out of work. The budget deficit has widened dangerously over the last few months, pushing Egypt close to bankruptcy as it runs out of sources of finance. Economists expect the budget deficit to have swollen to about 15% of the gross domestic product in the financial year that ended on June the 30th.